Sean here with BaseMint Comics, and it is 2 nights before New Comic Book Day. Normally, I would do this on a Tuesday night before picking up new books, but I teach Sunday school at my church, and we are putting up Christmas decorations tomorrow evening, and I'm a sucker for Christmas, and even more so when I get to irritate people by putting them up earlier than Thanksgiving. I don't see how the two can't coexist. Anyways, so the last video was a little bit late for reasons I have gone over at length. And so I was actually able to talk about a few books that I got last week. Those were kind of covered in the last video. And so these were the leftovers of, not in quality, but just I didn't get time to read them, so I was going to quickly chat about them. And so I'm going to kick it off by talking about the Age of Revelation titles, because for the most part, I actually enjoyed these issues. Last Wolverine, issue number 2, sees Heather Hudson put together a plan to take out her husband, Wolverine, in this future timeline. And so she gets the Wendigo Wolverine and Kurt, who has to now enter the, mutant territories, even though he's married and has kids and has been, outside of the mutation area. I don't, for as much as I am enjoying these, this is, not to sound cliche, but this could have been an email. This didn't need to be a line-wide event, I don't think. But I was happy to say that I enjoyed this issue much more. And Omega Kids issue number 2, I enjoyed a lot more than I enjoyed number 1. I was surprised that I'm not the biggest Quentin Quire fan. So in the first issue, he kind of gets some comeuppance, which I enjoyed. This one drags Rachel Summers Phoenix into it, which is a character that I really like. So I kind of dug that. And then, one of the kids that Quentin has been kind of teaching gave me the heebie-jeebies on the last page. So that was worth it. The book that I was least excited for out of the Age of Revelation titles wound up being my favorite of this batch of the books. It was Book of Revelation, and this involved with a young mutant girl who was becoming one of the choristers or whatever for Revelation. Got tossed off a building in the last issue by Fabian Cortez, which is super on brand for that character, and she was rescued by a completely ghost-like shadow cat. And there's some twists and turns in here that I wasn't expecting, and it's sort of kind of seems like they're kind of tightening up what this story is here, but I feel like I've read 20 parts of this before we've started to get into what it actually is. So again, I enjoyed this, but it has to be with this, there's an asterisk of do I think that I'm going to ever be hey, let's go back and reread Age of Revelation? Probably not, and that concerns me, because there is a 16,000 comic books in here that I go back to all the time. One of the Age of Revelation titles that I was super jazzed about, Radioactive Spider-Man number 2, I did not enjoy as much as I did the first issue. It was still good. Kev Walker's art is fun. It's definitely interesting. I like the relationship between Cecilia Reyes and Peter. Cecilia's an X-Men character that I've always really liked. But the big drawback for this issue is I'm super tired of the other Spider characters, your Ghost Spider and your Miles, and I'm tired of them being Pete's conscience. I don't know, it just feels like it's done a lot, and it just feels like, I don't know, I'm an old guy, so maybe I'm just annoyed with young kids trying to tell the old guy how to do things, but it doesn't necessarily sit well with me. in that regard. So that was kind of a drawback for this issue. May is like heavily mutated, which is, this kind of came off like, I read Immortal Hulk and the whole body horror thing, and this kind of feels like it's like sort of like May's mutation is crazy and monstery, and it's just not really doing anything for me, but somebody else might love it. Godzilla destroys the Marvel Universe. I talked in the last issue about how I know that they had announced a new Godzilla series, and I read the one-shots and enjoyed those. I've been reading this series, and I enjoyed these. And actually, as I was reading it last night, I was kind of laughing to myself, because like there's a moment where they like all build like the big mech thing to like fight Godzilla, and I was like, this should 100% be up my alley. But I'm just not a big enough like Godzilla nerd. Like I enjoy Godzilla things, but I'm not like ride or die Godzilla. So I think I have to like tap out of this just from a budget standpoint. And I was kind of happy with the way that this ended. So I was like, perfect. It wraps up like, it wraps up in a good way. And you like get the title card at the end. And I laughed because I should have stopped reading there, because when you turn the page, there is a really solid like setup for the next issue, for the next series. But I was kind of happy just where it ended, and was like, oh man, if I want to reread this, I can just stop right there, not read the after credit scene, and I will be blissfully unaware of anything that might have gone wrong in this particular universe. Captain America #5. I've gone on at length about how, for some reason, my brain cannot wrap my head around like the shifting time scale of Cap being unfrozen post 9/11. It's just, he's a World War II hero and always will be. And I mean, I guess technically he still is. It's just unfrozen post 9/11. But it's just sort of all. Here's the thing, though. It's written well. It's drawn well. It's fun. At the end, he kind of crosses paths with Tony, and that's a like charming interaction between the two of them, and clearly ends here, and we'll move forward with Cap in present day. I don't know if this is, I'm assuming it will be Cap in present day in his own solo title moving forward, but I might be wrong about that. I am notoriously not big on paying attention to, like, I look at solicits to just make sure that I'm ordering everything from my shop that I would like to get, but I don't like pore over them and like read too much about what they're about, because Marvel and just like the social media, YouTube, things like that, old USA Today articles spoiling things the day of or the night before or whatever. It's not my cup of tea. Cut to me drinking a cup of tea. It's just not my thing. Like, I pay enough attention to know what I want to order, but I don't do too much research beyond that. Mostly because I used to a lot, and it was starting to hinder, like, I'd be on message boards or, old social, like, I used to be on Twitter a long time ago, but I mean, it's like 13 years ago, and just got rid of it because it's just, I don't care. Anyways, this is a long roundabout way to say that, like, a few years back, I realized that, like, being a little bit too involved in, like, following creators, seeing how the sausage is made, and, there's a lot of rage bait out there that seems to be people just, like, getting off on reading into controversies and things like, and I just kind of washed my hands of it and was like, I need to get back to why I love comics and what brings me joy in comics. And one of those things was, like, when I first got into comics and had zero clue that any of this stuff existed. It was pre-internet, so I was just pedaling my bike up to the shop and picking what I wanted off the rack. My shop got to know me well enough back in the day to kind of know, like, we better pick the X books for Sean, otherwise he's going to be bummed out. And that's kind of where that's like where I live now in my fandom, is like, I watch a few YouTube channels that I trust and appreciate a more positive spin. Same thing with podcasts. There's a couple that I listen to, but beyond that, I have pulled back immensely. So that is to say, I did not do a ton of research on this. I saw that it was Chip Zdarsky writing Captain America, and I was like, sign me up. I've enjoyed everything else that I've read of Chip Zdarsky's quite a bit. So probably going to read this, the first 5 issues again, kind of in one sitting, to see if it feels better to me, but I am definitely looking forward to issue number 6. It looks like it's dealing with the fallout of One World Under Doom, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and definitely recommend, and we'll see where Captain America goes from there, but it's staying on my pull list. And so the number 1 book, this is like, even out of the stuff that I read, like One World Under Doom was great. I enjoyed the issue of Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man. Spider-Man Torn was, I think, a week before that. But this Spider-Man Holiday Spectacular number 1. I talked about it at length, that I'm a big sucker for holiday comics, and I assumed, much like these things in the past, where this would be like kind of an anthology thing, like bunch of writers, bunch of artists doing like 2 or 3 6-page stories tops, but this wound up being one Spider-Man Holiday Spectacular, written by Rainbow Rowell. Rainbow, I believe, wrote the most recent She-Hulk series, maybe, and I really enjoyed that. If not, and I'm giving credit to the wrong writer, my apologies, but I really liked that She-Hulk series. I have a feeling that I am correct, because Jack of Hearts and She-Hulk are together in this series, and kind of like, they're not prominent, but it was the same, that kind of stemmed from that series. So I was thinking this, but this is just this, like, Ben Grimm throws a Hanukkah party. Pete shows up, but he's all jazzed about how he's going to spend Christmas with Aunt May, and that doesn't wind up happening. So Pete sort of goes all around to different Christmas celebrations, and he does some Christmas stuff with Daredevil, and then winds up at Haven House in New Orleans, which is the Uncanny X-Men, where that's going on right now. So it features a lot of those characters, and I was jazzed because I loved the book Generation X when I was a kid. That was like my first like new team of kids, really, in the X-Men. And so Skin and Chamber are in here, so I enjoyed that. And it was just a fun, heartfelt, like, well-drawn, well-written. Like, Rainbow could write a Spider-Man series, and I would absolutely pick it up, because nailed the character's voice. It was a lot of fun. So those are the books from last week. Sean here with BaseMint Comics. It is Wednesday, November 26th. It is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving in America. And this used to be, I mean, it's still a pretty good comic book Wednesday, but back in the day at my old shop, it used to be my favorite Wednesday of the year, bar none. And so I will get into that after our ride. Yeah, we'll do the ride, and then we'll, come back. The magic of editing. So let's pedal up to the comic book shop to get our books. All right, so as you can see, and I mean, you probably can't tell in the video, but it was a very windy and very cold day. Like first day where pretty much felt like it was in the low 20s and like 50-mile-an-hour winds, which are, one way. It's great. And it always happens to be the way back when I'm pedaling against the wind and carrying the little guy with me, which adds all sorts of extra weight and drag, but we love it. And obviously, as you can see, it was starting to flurry. We're getting some lake effect snow. I know the UP is getting like hammered with like 2 feet of snow, so we're not getting that. We're just gonna get like a dusting down here, but looks like it might be the first cumulative snow. But you didn't tune in for the weather. You tuned in for me to ramble about what books I picked up this Wednesday. So we're gonna dive right into that, and then we're gonna go into why this Wednesday was always my favorite Wednesday of the year, and what my Thanksgiving traditions, comic book wise, are. So, first up, Jason Aaron's Uncle Scrooge, Earth's Mightiest Duck. This has been a blast. Normally, I probably would not have picked this up. I don't have a huge affinity towards like the Scrooge McDuck comics. I should. I have a pal who's very much into them, and like I've often thought about reaching out to him to see where I should start with like the old Carl Barks stuff of this. But Hank has shown quite a bit of interest in the classic DuckTales on Disney Plus, and the new one where David Tennant is Uncle Scrooge, and he really likes that. So I've kind of been like, I've been reading these and then kind of setting them. I have like a short box of stuff like for him, and so this kind of gets read and then gets put into the Hank pile. I mean, and eventually all 17,000 of these comics will wind up with him. Let's see. Next, Battle World number 3. You will learn this throughout the course of our parasocial relationship that I am a sucker for alternate reality Marvel stuff. And I am also a sucker for anything written by Christos Gage in the Marvel Universe. He's a fantastic writer, and the first 2 issues of this have been an absolute blast. Marcos Toe is doing the art. He's great. So this has been an absolute win for me as far as comics. This whole week actually was pretty good. Light week, so I wound up getting some stuff that I was like on the fence about and did not pre-order, but we'll see. What I did pre-order though was Black Cat. This has been a ton of fun. I never thought that I would be picking up a Black Cat solo series, but I, on a whim, because in the Corner Box Classics, had been reading a lot of like Felicia's first appearance, stuff like that. I was kind of in that era when this was initially announced, and she was in Avengers, and it was like a really good arc with her in the Avengers, and so that kind of like hipped me into picking this up. I didn't pre-order it, but I grabbed the first issue off the racks, loved it, and immediately added it to my pull list at my shop. This also fantastic art. The artist name is Gleb Melnikov. It's like a fun, like, it's a little cartoony style, and I am all for that. I mean, I love the realistic, like, Steve Epstein's, but I also love stuff that looks like cartoons. That's fun. Up next are the 2 Age of Revelation titles that I have going this week. I think this week had the release of Cloak or Dagger 2 and Undeadpool, and those are the 2 Age of Revelation titles that I'm not picking up. Cheers to tea in this fun. You'll notice if I start to ramble, Cyclops' Optic Blast will go away because this mug is based on heat. My wife got it for me a few Christmases ago, and I love it. Expatriate X-Men. this is going to be the point where you're like, come on, man, do some research, do some homework the night before when these new issues come out, because I could not tell you what happened in the first issue. Thank God for recap pages. Back in the day when I was younger and all I had to do was homework, like when I think back to like my youth getting into comics and stuff like that, I'm like, why did I always, like, it was like I was a sponge and could remember every new book. And I guess maybe it was because I was only really reading X books at the time, you know, and I know early 90s, throughout the 90s decade, there was plenty to keep me occupied week to week when it came to X books. But I wasn't picking up much of the rest of the Marvel Universe when I first got into comics. And I will admit that, like, my social calendar was it's pretty blank for the most part. So I had plenty of time to reread comic books and just play with my action figures and listen to records and bike around. Not much has changed. The social calendar has gotten slightly fuller. But I do not reread new comics over like I obsessively did as a kid, because now I've got shelves upon shelves of comics to read. So I'm constantly reading comics, but not always remembering everything month to month. Does anyone sound off in the comments if you have this similar issue, or if you're like, no, you've clearly been hit in the head too many times. One too many crashes on the bike, too many concussions. I can't remember what happened in last month's books. I do remember that I enjoyed X-Vengers #1 more than a good chunk of the Age of Revelation. I love Danny Moonstar. She's holding up Cap's shield. This looks like fun. And this was one of the books that I enjoyed more out of those titles. The book that I'm most excited for this week, and I have been enjoying this series immensely, and when I saw this cover, I was like, I'm all about this. It's the Mortal Thor #4, where Thor is hammering Ulik the Troll. If you go back into my earlier videos, you will see that I was on a major Ulik, I don't know, troll, like run there for a while. Like, bought the figure, got his first appearance, got some other appearances. It was just kind of like loving Thor beating up a troll. That was super fun. And another thing that I'm going to this issue isn't drawn by Pasquale Ferry, but the 3 previous issues were. And I have talked in other videos about how I recently acquired a good solid chunk of Doctor Strange issues because I was looking to pick up the Paul Smith run of Doctor Strange. And in doing that, the lot that I wound up winning had more than just the Paul Smith run. And what it wound up having, which I didn't know, I was unaware, and I'm a big Claremont guy, but it had Claremont's entire run when he wrote Doctor Strange, which I was like unaware of. And Gene Colan was drawing it at that time. So I have been like slacking a little bit on the Corner Box Classics, trying to catch this like Doctor Strange run up to it, which I will when I get like I'll have a Corner Box Classics issue coming out this weekend, and I'm going to go a little bit more into depth into these Doctor Strange. But man, I am loving Gene Colan's pencils, and I was thinking about it, and like I don't know how to. I'm not good at like expressing how art makes me feel, but I'm not like one to like pick apart an artist's like style, if that makes sense. It either makes me feel something or it doesn't make me feel something. But Gene Colan's pencils, it's so fluid that it's almost like he like, the only way I can describe what I'm seeing is it's like he sets his pencil down on the paper and doesn't ever pull it up. Like it's just fluid. Like his line work is almost like he never lifts the pencil off the page, and everything just kind of like bleeds together, but in this really beautiful way. And when I was reading this stuff, looking at his art, I was always curious, like, who... I like Pasquale Ferry's art, so like, who is one of Pasquale Ferry's influences? And I would be shocked if Gene Colan isn't amongst that list, because I get a similar vibe from Pasquale Ferry's. But this issue is drawn by... bummer, there's no title page within that, and I don't want to get too far into this because I don't want spoilers. So I don't know who drew this issue, but it still looks good from the couple that I just flipped through. Then on to books that I did not pre-order, but because it was a light week, I decided that I would give a chance. The first one being Daredevil and Punisher #1. I didn't pre-order this, but the closer we got to this Wednesday, I was like, I love Daredevil. I'm so on Punisher. I've never really been a big Punisher reader. I don't mind when he pops up, but I've never been like a Punisher solo series guy. But I love Daredevil. So I was like, you know what? I will give this a chance. Written by Jimmy Palmiotti. Art by Tommaso Bianchi and Brian Valenza. I am unfamiliar with both of those dudes, but a quick flip through there makes it seem like the art is pretty good, so I was willing to take a chance on this. Then the last book that I picked up, which wound up being 3 books, I saw the news, like it popped up in my social media feed, that Philip Kennedy Johnson, is that how you say it? Yep, Philip Kennedy Johnson. I hear he's a big DC guy. Went Marvel exclusive, and that the Infernal Hulk #1 was coming out. I read the Immortal Hulk, but did not pick up the Incredible Hulk. Like, I wound up actually realizing that I was probably never going to go back and read the Immortal Hulk. Like, I'm not... my Hulk run is Peter David's, and like, I have some of Greg Pak's like World War Hulk, Planet Hulk, that type of stuff, but I'm not the biggest Hulk guy. I've read all of Defenders. I've read lots of him in Avengers, but as far as his solo series, I've like dipped in and out. And Immortal Hulk I got because my one of my best pals lives next door to me. He used to work at my old comic shop. We are neighbors. And he's a big horror guy. And so he was picking up Immortal Hulk. And he was like, hey, you should pick up Immortal Hulk too. And we'll talk about it over the fence, like an episode of Home Improvement, which is a super dated reference to anyone from the 90s. The T is now below the visor. And I enjoyed it, but I was like, the likelihood that I am ever going to, in my like spare time, with the amount of stuff that I have to read and the amount of stuff that I love to reread, that I'd ever be like, hell yeah, let's sit down and devour this 50 issues of Immortal Hulk. It was never going to happen. So I wound up at a show. One of my moves at cons is like, and actually I'm going to bring up another one of these instances in a few when I talk about Thanksgiving stuff, is I tend to take stuff with me to cons in the hopes of trading stuff that I'm no longer interested in to get things that I am interested in. This is how I completed runs of Fantastic Four, Captain America, Iron Man, and stuff like that. Is I wasn't just buying all of them. I was like taking things that seemed to be like other people were like for instance, I bought the Ultimate Spider-Man stuff as that was coming out and enjoyed it, but I was like, do I really need the single issues of these, or when it's all wrapped up, can I just buy a trade, read it, and and I could probably do that. So like, that's another thing that I did, was like, took those Ultimate Spider-Mans when they were super hot and everybody was jonesing to find a #1, took those to a convention, traded them in so I could buy 150 issues of Captain America written by Mark Grunwald. Because I'm like, chances are good that I am going to go back to 150 issues of Captain America written by Mark Grunwald long before I'm going to go to 12 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man, especially knowing that they were like ending it. Because I was just like, all right, they're going to put it in a bunch of trades. If I want to, I can get it in a bunch of trades. So, this is all to say that I missed out on the most recent Incredible Hulk run, but I was kind of intrigued by what I heard about this. So my shop still had the last 2 issues, 29 and 30. So I figured I would grab those and I would give this #1 a shot. And like I said, I heard that Philip Kennedy Johnson had gone Marvel exclusive, and that he had some new titles coming out, or like on the burner, but he couldn't talk about them in this announcement. And so I figured this would give me at least 3 issues of seeing what his writing's about. Since I'm not a DC guy, I've never read any of his DC stuff. So I was like, hey, I'll give this a shot. So those are my new books this week. And so let's see. Okay, so at my old shop, which eventually, so the old comic book shop that I used to go to for years and years and years and years, they eventually switched over to basically doing like auctions. Like they'd buy collections from people, or like old ephemera, memorabilia, stuff like that. And the shop basically, eventually, to survive, stopped doing new comics and just sort of turned into an auction house. I believe I've told a story where the first auction that they ever did, I bought the first appearance of Banshee, and it was CGC, and I snapped it open in the middle of the auction, because I don't have any CGC books. You do you, but I like reading them. Anyways, so eventually they just became an auction house, and so I stopped going there, and I went like mail order for a little while. And that was to break me of paying attention to solicits and chatter online about comics, because like I was getting shipments monthly, and so it was like, well, then I didn't need to pay attention to like people talking about comics, because I didn't want to get stuff spoiled. And so that like year or two plus, we were pregnant with Henry, and so it was nice to save some money, and I was just busy getting like our life together and putting his room together and all that type of stuff, and just but then when he was born, I was like, ooh, I would very much like, for as long as he's interested, to have the comic shop experience. And so the shop that we go to now, A to Z, is a shop that I didn't live close to when I was a kid, but I would go to on the regular for back issues and stuff like that. So I have been shopping at that store for as long as I've been reading comics, which is a little over like 35 years now. And I just I was like, if he and I are going to go to a shop, it's going to be one that I went to as a kid, and it's like a solid distance from our house, which makes a good like bike ride. And it's through this we're kind of like we're kind of at one end, and the shop's at another end of this kind of nature preservey thing that we live by. And hence the biking through like actual like wooded trails and by a river and lakes and stuff like that is because of the proximity of the two. Anyways, so this is just so everyone knows, like, I do currently love my shop. However, back in the day when I did not have to chase a 3-year-old and keep him from grabbing things or like bending comic books off the rack, I was able to get to know everybody at my, customer and worker alike at my old shop. And so the night before Thanksgiving, my regular job for 20 years, I do not work on Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving. So like it was always this great, like, Wednesday felt like Friday. And I was going to see all my pals at the comic book shop, and I was going to pick up new books, and I was going to have 4 days to read them, and it was awesome. And I would make meatballs. I would slow cook some meatballs and bring those up to the shop so everybody could eat meatballs, and we'd be hanging out talking about comics. And the shop did this thing where they would put out empty pizza boxes, not obviously not used, like new ones, and they would put like 20 or 25 comics in them, and they were like $10, and there was a giant size X-Men in one year, and I actually bought one year and got Incredible Hulk number 340. I think that's it's the one where Wolverine is on the cover. It's the McFarlane one with the claws and all that. Yeah. That is actually what I was talking about earlier when I have a lot of the Peter David Hulk run in Epic Collection, and that was one of the issues, and so I finally parted with that at a convention last winter, because it paid for not only like our tickets to the convention, but it also paid for literally everything that we did at the convention, every book that we picked up, every signature that we got. Selling that one book funded the whole weekend, and I wasn't that hard pressed to part with it. The thing that I loved the most about it was the memory attached to the Pizza Box Wednesday night, not the actual issue. Like, I am fine with Todd McFarlane art, but I do not feel the same way that most people do. Mostly because he didn't really draw X-Men, so I didn't really have there's no like childhood attachment to McFarlane's art. I like it when I read those Spidey stories, but I wasn't like a Spawn guy or anything like that. Anyways, so that was the excitement of the Wednesday before the new comic book Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And so I love my shop that I'm at now, but like I said, most of my time is spent making sure that Hank isn't over there like spine bending books off the rack. So, and all the pals are scattered to different stores now. So, it's biking up there, hanging out for a few, mostly chatting music, and then splitting. So, as far as comic book Thanksgiving traditions, and you will find out that I am big on tradition. My tradition for years and years and years and years has been to read Uncanny X-Men number 308, Mixed Blessings. And I got it signed by John Romita Jr. when I met him in New York in 2010. And this is one of the things that you will come to find about my appreciation of the X-Men, is that one of the things that I love about the X-Men is I like the downtime issues. They were X-Men, hands down, better than any other title that I have ever read in my entire comic book reading life at doing downtime, like breath of fresh air issues. Like, there is no punch-ups in this issue. There's no bad guy that comes and wrecks Thanksgiving. It is legitimately just the gang playing football. Scott and Jean having a discussion about where their relationship is headed. Jean proposes to Scott, and it is literally them, like, it's, Beast and Forge and Storm raking leaves, them playing football, and then them sitting down for a Thanksgiving meal. And it is just like, there's a lot of stuff that happens previous to this issue in the X-Men world, and there's a lot of stuff that is coming down the pipeline following this issue. And so this was just kind of a month to like take a breath before things and kind of assess, like, and reflect on what had happened. And I friggin' love it. And during the years where, like, before Ashley and I were together and I wasn't really doing much on Thanksgiving, it was nice to have a family that I've known for 35 years to hang out with. And so that is why I love this issue so much, and why I read it every year at Thanksgiving. And if you have never read this issue, it is just a great, like, 32 pages of fun character moments. Although I will admit there is an error in it, which I always thought was funny, because it's actually the bubble where Jean proposes to Scott, that it's empty, which is it's kind of hilarious. So that is my comic book Thanksgiving tradition. And then tonight we're going to do the double feature of Dutch and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which, I'm sure that everyone is aware of. I mean, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is basically one of the greatest comedies ever made. And I'm sure people are hella familiar with that one. But if you've never watched Dutch, it is just as it is a fantastic, like, road trip, get the kid back to his family holiday movie. So that's we're gonna watch a Wings game tonight, and then after the little guy goes to bed, do our Thanksgiving road trip double feature. So that's that. So this has been New Comic Book Wednesday. Talked a little bit about some of the leftover books from last week, and I have that Corner Box Classics from the end of February 1982 that I have been talking about forever. I'm gonna wrap that up this weekend. So, if you are enjoying getting to know me and the things that I am attached to comic book wise, and me going off more on my personal reflections of it than any type of review thing, then this is the channel for you. So if you could like, comment, and subscribe, that would be fantastic. Do you have any Thanksgiving, like, traditions that you do? I know this is kind of like only open to the American audience when it comes to American Thanksgiving, but let me know if you have any Thanksgiving comic book traditions. And yeah, so thanks for taking this ride with us, and everyone who does celebrate, have a happy Thanksgiving, and I will see you over the weekend with a new episode of Corner Box Classics. All right, thanks for taking this ride with us. Bye.